to our third workshop. I'm so excited to have you all here for this workshop. Our workshop's title is When is the Right Time to Switch Jobs? This is a really awesome topic because we've got an amazing guest speaker for you all tonight. And the reason why this is an awesome topic is because this is probably something you've faced or thought about in your work experience. Maybe it's been something that's been on your mind recently. Maybe it's something that's been on your mind in the past, but it's definitely something that's probably crossed your mind. When is the right time to switch jobs? This could be because your company culture is not valuing you, or maybe you've got a bad situation with your supervisor, or maybe you're just kind of bored. You don't feel like you've got any upward momentum, or for any other reason for why you might want to switch jobs. This is the workshop for you to give you insight as to when actually is the right time to switch jobs. How can you go about identifying when that right time is? And how can you put yourself in the best position so then you are properly leveraging the opportunity at hand? Now, one thing we know is that one of the best ways to go about raising your pay level and your title, your actual status within a company's level is by switching jobs. It's just a fact. What we've observed in the data is that people are less likely to get promoted by staying at the same company year over year. They are much more likely to get promoted faster by switching jobs. In fact, some of the things we see quite often is people leaving a company, going to a different company, getting some experience, and then coming back at a much elevated role than somebody who stayed at that company that entire time. So it's something to definitely consider and think about, but it is not all about switching jobs, and it is really all about when is the right time to switch jobs, because there are sometimes moves that are diagonal moves, there are sometimes moves that are directly vertical moves, there are sometimes horizontal moves that you believe will help you move up vertically even faster, and sometimes the motivation isn't necessarily to move up faster or to make more money. Sometimes it's to get more balance with your life, or sometimes the motivation is to work on something that is more of a calling to you, something that you really are passionate about. It's not about the money anymore. It's okay, whatever your motivations are. This workshop will really shed light on when the right time is to switch jobs. Now, we're going to cover a few key things that you can do to prepare for your mentor relationship and for how to actually go about preparing for switching jobs. And obviously, we've got an amazing guest speaker for you all this evening. But I wanted to talk a little bit about work orientation. Work orientation, that's that measurement that we've leveraged to help match you with your mentor. And this is something that plays a big role into job changes because we know that, one, your work orientation is fluid. Work orientation is how you view your work. So some people view their work as a job, some people view their work as a career, some people view their work as a calling. If you've logged into your Ambition in Motion dashboard, you'll see that triangle, you'll see where your dot is on the triangle. But it's fluid, meaning that your dot could have changed between January when you took the assessment and right now. And that's, by the way, completely okay. That's completely normal. But what we know is that what motivates you at work will absolutely determine how and when and why you will want to switch jobs. So back to what I was saying earlier, if you're job oriented, that's, by the way, completely okay. It means you're motivated by work-life balance. Your decision to change jobs might be because you're working 80 hours a week and you just can't keep doing it anymore. You got to be home with family. You got things in your life that you want to do more of, and your work is not allowing you to do that. So your motivation is not necessarily more money or a higher status. It could be, hey, I want to work 40 hours a week, or I want to work 30 hours a week, I want to work 20 hours a week. I want to do something that can pay me a little bit of money, allow me to get by, but ultimately allow me to relax and wind down a bit. And that's okay. If you're career oriented, that's where we see a lot of the stereotypical reasons for moving, because it helps you work up the corporate ladder. It helps you get promoted faster. It helps you get a higher pay raise. It helps you learn new skills. Moving jobs is definitely something that's advantageous for someone who's career-oriented because it allows you to try new things. But then the key is, how can you be strategic about that? Our guest speaker will help us with that this evening. And the last part is your calling. So if you're calling-oriented, you might want to switch jobs because, you're working for this company and it's just not doing it for you. You're like, yeah, it's fine. The impact on the world that we're making is fine, but it's just not calling to your heart and the impact you want to make on the world. And we end up realizing to ourselves, shoot, we've only got a finite amount of days, years, hours on this earth. We might as well be spending it doing something that we're really passionate about, we feel like is making a positive difference. We can always get more money, but we cannot get more time. For us, if you're calling oriented, you might determine, I am switching because I want to be doing something that's meaningful to me. Then the key is, how can you be strategic and put your priorities on a pedestal to ensure that you are getting what you want out of it? Don't get sidetracked by the things that do not motivate you. It can be easy, let's say if you're calling oriented, to start looking for new jobs because you want to find something that you're more passionate about. And then maybe you get 3 different job offers and you end up making a decision based on the amount of money. That would be crazy. But it happens all the time because ultimately you're making this job switch because you wanted to do something you were more passionate about. Ultimately, if you get, let's say, 3 offers and you're calling oriented, the company, the entity, the organization that is the most impactful to you really should be the one that wins out. At the end of the day, sure, your quantitative metrics in terms of how much money you need to be making should be appeased, but after that, you should be looking at impact if that's something that motivates you. If you're job oriented, what's the type of role that's going to give you the most work-life balance? You might have 3 job offers. One is, asking you to work 50 hours a week. One is asking you to work on Saturdays and Sundays. And one says, you know what, hey, you're going to only work 35 hours a week. You're only going to do that over 3 days, Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Thursdays through Sundays are yours. That might be the thing that you want. You might be, I'm cool with working extended hours on 3 days of the week to get a bunch of hours, make money, and then, the rest of it's essentially a weekend. That could be the way that you perceive work. Whatever it is, make sure that what motivates you, what is the most important factor, is the highest and the most highest thing on your pedestal of what is your decision-making process. So that is just the thing that I really want to stress when it comes to when is the right time to switch jobs, making sure that your priorities are aligned with where you want to go. Now, we're about halfway through the mentor program this spring. Hopefully you've met with your mentor. Hopefully you've already met with your mentor twice. I want you to make the most out of this program. Take advantage of it. Meet with your mentor as many times as you possibly can, and hopefully get yourself to where you want to be. Now, one thing that I really want to stress is that if you are not able to get in contact with your mentor, if you're having any issues, please email support@ambition-in-motion.com. We can answer any questions, comments, concerns, or issues you have with your mentor. Or if you've got kudos, if things are going on great and amazing, send it to us. We love hearing those stories. I mean, the positive just makes us feel good that we're making a positive impact. It makes us feel really special that we've done something. So I know often, it's, as the term goes, if it bleeds, it leads. We only want to share the things that are negative in our world. Share the positive stuff. It makes us feel better about what we are doing. We love to hear it. So let's jump in. Now, the one thing that we've talked about in previous workshops that I really want to stress, and I stress it every single time, that is strategy, story, and state. Those are the 3 keys to success in this program. And I'll talk about them in reverse order. State is the most important thing. Physically, what is your state? Physically, where are you at? Physically, what is going on in your world? I don't care if you've had a horrible day, if you're stressed out, if your work is frustrating you. I mean, the whole point of this program is that hopefully we can get your work situation to a point where it's not frustrating you. But regardless of it, when you're going into a mentor meeting, what is your state saying about you? If you're coming in with a negative mentality, if you're coming in with a negative state, you're going to give off negative vibes. Then people are not going to want to help you or be around you. But on the flip side, if you get yourself into a positive state, if you're doing power poses every morning, you're getting yourself up, moving, working around, and just getting yourself overall in a good feeling and a good mood, because your emotions, by the way, your emotions drive your emotions. You can get yourself into an emotionally positive state by moving around and getting your body going, getting your blood pumping. I tell you that's something that I've learned from Tony Robbins. It's an extremely valuable tool. Make sure that you're leveraging it, but your state is so critical. So what I want to do right now is I want to get you into state. You're about to learn some amazing things from our guest speaker this evening. I want to make sure that you are taking the most out of it and retaining as much information as you can. So what I want you to do is I want you to stand up, and I want you to shake it out. I want you to shimmy loose. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. On the count of 3, scream at the top of your lungs. 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Just let it out. Let it loose. Let it go. You got nothing to lose. I don't care who's looking at you weirdly, if you're at work or if you're in an office or if you're at home. I don't care what's going on. You've got nothing to lose, because at the end of the day, it's about how much are you taking from this program. If you're making the most out of this, you've invested yourself in this program. I want you to make the most out of this. So get yourself into a state conducive for being successful. This goes for any scenario you're going into at work, whether that be a mentor meeting, a colleague meeting, a supervisor meeting. Get yourself into state. Do what you need to do to get yourself prepared physically, because you will then be much more likely to be successful. Now, the next key is your story. What is the story you tell yourself for why you are going to be or not to be successful? I want to think about this in a different way. I want to ask you a question. I would love if you could post your comments in the comments section. But what is a feeling that you want other people to feel about you when you meet them? The reason why I ask this is because it helps us and forces us to be intentional about how we want others to feel about us. Because ultimately, if we're intentional about how we want other people to feel about us, we are much more likely to actually convey that feeling in them. If we're thinking to ourselves, man, I would love if people thought I was confident, or I would love if people thought I was knowledgeable, or I would love if people thought I was kind or empathetic, whatever it is, post in the comments section. I'd love to learn what is a feeling that you would love to convey in other people. But what this does, by being intentional about what feeling we are trying to convey in other people, we can now start taking actions and start doing things that help reinforce that feeling in their minds about who we are, what we're doing. If we can be intentional about how we want other people to feel about us, we are much more likely to be successful. That plays directly into that story thing about why we'll be successful. Because sometimes I think it might be easy to perceive, oh, story is just about being confident. Story is just about telling yourself why you're going to be successful. And it is. That's a big part of it. But the other big component to having a good story is understanding every component of how other people interact with you. So you don't want to come in bombastically overconfident and just not being humble. It's about being intentional about how you want other people to feel about you. If you can identify that feeling, post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about it. That will really help you in terms of having the right story. Now, the last key is your strategy. What are the things you are going to do to best prepare yourself for this circumstance? Now, our workshop tonight is about when is the right time to switch jobs. I'm a big proponent of SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. One thing that I would love for you to do, it's great to start a routine every month. Identify what is the strength of staying in my company, what is the weakness of staying in my company, what are the opportunities of moving to a different company, what is the threat of moving to a different company. Identify that. When the opportunities and the weaknesses are greater than the strengths and the threats, it is time to move. That helps you do a personal audit of where you were, where you are, and where you'd like to be. If you don't do that, it can be difficult to know when is the right time to switch. It can be easy to fall into a trap of just doing the same monotonous work day in and day out. By doing consistent SWOT analyses and by doing it monthly, you're much more likely to have a greater understanding of when the right time is to switch. Now, the last thing that I would love and really implore you to try is to share what you're learning about with somebody else. It could be another person in this program, it could be a friend, it could be a significant other, it could be anybody, a family member, whatever. Because what we've learned is that when people who participate in this program share something that they learned about this program with at least 20 other people, their likelihood of achieving their goals in this program increases incrementally. We hypothesize that a big reason for this is that they're teaching other people these skills that they're learning. And when we know that when you teach somebody else something else, it is much more likely to reinforce in your mind. Maybe it could also be the law of attraction. By sharing with other people the things that you're learning in this program, especially your goals, people are now thinking about you for those outcomes. Maybe they're thinking, you know what, Jane Doe, John Doe would be a perfect fit for this thing, and they're going to introduce you. The point I'm making is that when you share this program and what you're learning with more people, the likelihood that you're going to achieve your goals increases substantially. And also, I mean, for future programs, we're actually we're opening up our enrollment for the fall program. If you could encourage other people to participate, we would love to get more people involved, because we know that if you could be an ambassador for this, we are much more likely to make a better impact and a bigger impact on more people. So if you could help encourage more people to enroll in the program, we would love to have that, especially to have your support in that endeavor. So I'm so excited to jump into our guest speaker this evening. We're talking about when is the right time to switch jobs. If you've got any questions about anything at all, any comments, any concerns, any issues with anything, please email us at support@ambition-in-motion.com. I'm so excited for what you all are about to learn this evening. I'm so excited for you to embark on the next half of the Ambition in Motion Mentor Program with your mentor. I look forward to seeing what you are all able to accomplish. Let's get going to the next part of this workshop.
Hey everybody, I'm so excited to dive into another workshop. We're here to talk about how to know when is it the right time to switch jobs. So I know a lot of you are maybe early into your career, or maybe you're about to enter into your career, and maybe you've gotten to a point where you're thinking to yourself like, uh-oh, I've entered a job that might not be my long-term fit. Or, uh-oh, what I studied in college isn't what I'm doing professionally. And like, what do I want to do professionally? Or maybe, uh-oh, what I studied in college and what I'm doing professionally are aligned, but it's not what I like doing. And like, do I need to make a switch? Fortunately, we've got a great leader with us here today to share with us his experiences as to how he's transitioned in his career, when he's known when is the right time to switch jobs. You've got Arik Yelovitch here. Arik, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Garrett.
So Arik, let me start off with an initial question. How did you get into your current role? And have you ever had a role that like you hated and knew you needed to leave?
Yeah, great question. Two questions basically. So I'll start with the latter. Yes, I had in my 24 years career as in the technology industry, I had one or two places I didn't like naturally. Otherwise, probably I would need to get the recipe of how you get to places that you like and not dislike. So you always make sometimes the wrong choice. And I'll start by just emphasizing that the interview process is a very short process, which you learn the limited capacity what you can learn about your employer and what your future employer, or not your future employer, can learn about you. I always compare it to, I would not marry my wife after 2 dates, right? You need more time than that. And that's basically kind of what we do with a job interview. We have a few dates. Everybody tried to put the best foot forward, and everybody tried to get the best presentation, and everything is roses. And only when you get really into the job and a few months in and you see the dynamics, only then you can actually determine and have the final understanding of, yes, this is an amazing place for me because ABC, or this is not amazing, but I can live with that, or, oh my God, I need to get out sooner rather than later. So yes, I had a place like that, and I was in the transition of moving a house and everything. So I kind of kept it, and then at some point I'm like, okay, it's not good for me, it's not healthy for me, and I'm not gonna stay here. And another example is a place that was amazing for me and started to be less amazing, and I found myself saying, okay, I'm not really enjoying coming to work anymore. Probably I need to look for something else. And it's a natural transition. It can happen immediately, or it can happen after 3 years. Just something we need to be aware of, because it's very easy to sink into a rhythm and kind of like mask the unhappiness or unfulfilledness in a job and give yourself excuses why it's okay. It's not. So we can talk about it a bit later.
Tell me more about that. That's really interesting, because I think that's something that I think that is a really important point for students to hear, just young professionals to hear, is that just because it started off great and maybe you told all your friends or your family or your significant other, whoever it may be, that, oh, this job is great. Just because it was great at one point doesn't mean it's always great throughout history and time. Like, people change, leadership changes, the work changes, economies change, so many things change. And I think, like, if you've told people, I think sometimes there's this identity crisis where if you've told people, oh, this job's amazing, this company's amazing, I love it, I love it, I love it, you almost feel obligated to stick to that sentiment when things do change.
You feel like you own it, basically.
Yeah, you feel like you own it.
Your own personal failure. Like, the point is, like, I think when you admit to something, oh, it's amazing, it's the best job I ever had, and after 3 months you find out it's not, it's kind of admitting your own failure. Not because you're at fault that it's not. It's because maybe you blame yourself subconsciously that you didn't see it coming, that you didn't judge character correctly, that you didn't judge the technology correctly, and then it's ultimately mirroring as internal failure. And most people, and it's a human behavior, it's hard for us to admit a personal failure to everybody. We can admit it to ourselves, but it's very hard for us to admit it to others, and especially when it's not part of our immediate circle. And switching a job is a very public thing today, right? There's LinkedIn, there is so many sources that monitor where you work. If you look my name, you'll see my entire history, and you almost can't hide any unsuccessful employment in a sense. So admitting a failure is like opening to the world, say, I failed, but you need to view it as a learning point, right? What did I learn from that experience? And I won't repeat, right? If you constantly failing, that's on you. If you learn from it, that's the only way to grow. And in my domain, the technology domain, and being a developer, that's the best way to learn, I think. Successes is very hard to learn from because you succeeded, right? And through failures, you can learn a lot. Again, I'm not encouraging everybody to fail all the time. At some point, you need to learn and stop failing. But it's a great tool if you can leverage it as a tool and not as a shameful thing that happened to you and take you to the wrong place.
And to your point, like you wouldn't marry your wife after 2 dates. You know, same thing happens in the interview. It's like you get hired, you're all gung ho, you're like, this is such a cool company, I'm so excited, all these sorts of things, and then like, you know, things change, and you know, you find all the dead bodies in the closets, and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? I guess you brought up a point before that I thought was really fascinating, and I want to kind of hit both sides of the spectrum here. Have you ever had a scenario where you thought the work sucked, but you were like, oh, it's going to be way better, and the grass was in fact not greener on the other side, following that metaphor, and then vice versa? How long do you put up with pain tolerance when you've got personal things going on? Like you mentioned that you were moving one time and you're like, cool, I need to have my health insurance. I need to have like my job. I need to have an income because like my family's going through a lot of personal things right now. But gosh, this work really sucks. And I've just got to like push through it. Like both sides of the spectrum here, kind of. How do you determine if the grass is in fact greener on the other side? And how do you determine your pain tolerance for when the job sucks, but you need it for your family, all these other things like health insurance, money, whatever it may be?
Stability. Yeah. So I'll start with a former. So I'm an optimistic guy. I always think there is room to improve, and if I'm in position to help improve it, I always think it's better to be within and help to improve from within, because it's very hard to improve from outside. Like it's almost impossible. So even when things turn a bit south, trying still to, improve it, help make it more, I would say, welcoming and more comfortable and more interesting and stuff like that. Until a point, I think that you just can't affect it anymore. And it just sucks. It is what it is. And that brings to the second point that you mentioned, what's your tolerance? So I think it divides. Every person has different, I would say, symptoms to this event, which is not easy to digest for some people. Some people just it affects their mind, right? Their psyche. Some people it actually physically affects them. I have a friend that at some point got the shingles. Like, man, that's terrible. I, in the distance, didn't want to go to work. It wasn't fun anymore. So I think it's about, you always have to put it in a weighted average of, if I leave now, what happens? Do I have the time? Do I have the bandwidth? Do I need it? Like, there's so many factors there. At some point, you have to say, okay, does it worth it? It's like any other transaction you have in life. Does the revenue over investment worth it? When you have a family, the revenue is much broader picture, right? You have kids, you have a wife, you have a house, you have a car, you have blah 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 blah. On the other hand, if you're not healthy, it affects your health, then nothing worth it. And assuming you have the ability to say, okay, I'll burn 4 months of savings if I need to look for a job for 4 months. It doesn't worth me going out to the hospital and spend their time, or me taking out my anger on my family. And again, everybody has a different psyche and how they manifest their basically frustration from work. But we have to remember that we are working 10 hours a day, even more sometimes in startups. If you're not happy there and you're coming home agitated and feel unfulfilled and not happy, it will manifest on someone else, because it has to come out. You can't keep it in your stomach, and you won't yell at your coworkers. Like, there's still some demeanor there. So it will come out on someone. It's just human nature. Or you will boil inside and you just come out as something wrong, an illness. One or the other. You can't store it in your stomach. So at some point you say, okay, it just doesn't worth it. Even if I move, even I burn savings, I need to keep my family happy. I don't want to divorce my wife. I don't want my kids to hate me, and I don't want to be with shingles. So it's always a personal decision, but the baseline is, if you're suffering, stop it. It just doesn't worth it, because it will just deteriorate and there's no hope. That's it. You're on a downhill, you're on a downslope, and it will also affect your future employer, because you'll come to interviews unhealthy, unoptimistic. It's shown. Our eyes and face show what's going on at work, and it just affect your life in a sense that the price will be too big.
Yeah, I want to take a moment to ask the students a question real quick. Post in the comment section. what are your physical signs when you know that this is just not the right place? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn. Just because, like, I think acknowledging what are the physical signs to you, so then you, like, when you see it, you can catch it and be like, okay, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. Because, this leads to another question, because I know you and also because I'm biased. I'm always a fan of entrepreneurship, and I know where you were before being a co-founder of your own startup right now. I'm always an advocate for entrepreneurship, but I recognize that for a lot of people, they think, oh, I don't have the risk tolerance for something like that. And I don't know, with what's going on in the world today, I see a lot of people working their butts off just really, really hard, and then ultimately to get laid off by a large, seemingly stable organization. And now they're looking for a job, and it's exhausting because they worked so hard. They put in all their time, energy, and effort for what they thought was stability, ultimately to not have any stability. And, if you're an entrepreneur, you control your own destiny, meaning that when the market's not good, you're facing it. But when the market's great, or when you're putting in the effort, energy, and time to grow your business, like, you can control literally your own destiny and make pivots when the business needs a pivot. So, I'd be curious to learn from your perspective, just because I know contextually where you came from and where you're at now, what about, I don't know, what about this current role that you're in right now was so attractive to you transitioning from your other role? Because you were in a CTO role from your previous role and your current role. Like,
Yeah.
why make, I kind of know the answer, but I kind of want the students to hear it too.
Yeah,
Why
so
make that transition?
this is where human connections, which you build through your through aging and experience, comes to play. So my co-founder, we met 10 years ago when I came to the States. For the students who don't recognize my accent, it's not Texan accent. I wasn't born in the US. So when I came 10 years ago to the Bay Area to start working for Hippo Insurance, I met my nowadays best friend and literally brother, and Mike. And we always at some point said, yeah, we need to start something of our own. I'm very strong in technology. He's an insurance mastermind. And we always thought there is always room for innovation. But instead, like, let's grab lunch sometime. It's stayed in the same area as we wanted, but probably will never happen. But it's a good dream to have. And from here to there, 4 years ago, I think already almost, I joined Delos as a CTO, and it was a pleasure being there for 2 years until Mike actually came and cashed out our dream and said, hey, I really want us to co-found a startup in the insurtech. And still, it was a very hard decision, but this is where friendship overweighted anything else. I wasn't an entrepreneur. My career started in an enterprise. My first 10 years on the job were in enterprise organizations, HP and other big organizations. I started my startup career when I came here 10 years ago, so it's kind of half and half almost. And this is the first time as being a co-founder. So the co-founder, of course, attracted because, as you said, we control our own destiny, for better or worse. And again, most of it is the worst because we know the statistics, but hey, it's my learning, and I can learn a lot and start another one because there's no end to ideas. But I think this is where personal knowledge of the person you're going to work with, because a lot of startups start with two people matched together. It's the same as a job interview when you think about it. Hippo co-founders were introduced to each other. Work didn't work. They didn't know each other before. A lot of co-founders don't know each other. We are very privileged if we find a friend, someone we can trust as a co-founder to start an adventure. Starting alone is very hard. And starting with someone you don't know their history is also very hard. So that's basically was what tilted the decision towards starting a new thing, because when I joined Hippo, that was after round A. Then I had Credit Karma, which was sell to Intuit. Then I had another small place, which we talked about. And then I joined Delos, which was seed towards round A. And I left literally a month before round A to a pre-seed company. Like, you can't go any further back unless I'm going to the garage with Hewlett Packard and work there. Hopefully, this is my last one. It won't succeed, but if it doesn't, it won't be my last one, because I just can't go back to enterprise. It's like once you fly business, you can't go back, right? So I think the more connections you create in the industry, and that brings also to a point, no matter where you are, even the lousiest workplace, it's unless the people, this person that created that environment, always exit on best terms. Don't burn the bridge. The industry as a whole, we think it's a big, but it's a very small industry. Everybody knows everybody. And the more you progress up the pyramid, the smaller the chunk is. So you need more and more connections because people will ask for referrals and they'll connect someone from 10 years ago and you don't want them to say a bad word. You always want to exit with a handshake. And yes, it might even work, but it's not a personal thing. It's a professional thing, right? You weren't the right fit. The company wasn't the right fit for you. It happens. It's coming back to, it's not a failure unless you did something wrong, which I'm taking out of the equation for a second because that's already a personal thing. So always end up things on good terms, regardless of where you're living, because you never know when it's get back, and you never know what the connections you created, because someone from that company can come back to you and say, "Hey, Garrett, I have an amazing idea. I think you're the person to help me with it. Let's start something," out of the blue. And I heard a lot of these stories, and thank God I'm one of these stories. And that's the story of why I left a trending up company, which never, as one of the investors said to me, we were scratching our heads, why are you leaving? Which is a very polite way to say, what the hell happened here? Why are you leaving? And so it's not a very common decision, I would say, transition, what I did from Delos to Adaptive. But hey, best friend, entrepreneur, what can go wrong, right?
Well, and you bring up such a great point about just the power of networking and putting yourself out there. I think like a lot of people think like, cool, I go to work, I do my job, I sit between 9 and 5, have my blinders on, I go home, do my thing, whatever, and that's just it. And I think you would be doing yourself a monster disservice by not putting yourself out there, because sure, there's the entrepreneurial route, but there's also the internal like enterprise route as well, where you become friends with someone in a different department, and then all of a sudden they get fast tracked up the ladder, and then all of a sudden they say, I need someone who can really lead this. I know you've never worked in this area before. Do you want to work with me over here? And now you go from sitting behind someone who's never going to retire or is just not a great boss or sponsor, and now you can be fast tracked up the ladder. But you're stuck if you're not actually putting yourself out there and building these bonds and relationships. I think you do yourself a major disservice by not doing that. And I also think if you are a person like, I mean, now that I've got a child, I get it, because there's just a time commitment that is just really hard to, get out of. You just got to be there for your baby. You got to be there for your family. There's a lot more obligations. But if you're a professional and you do not have children and you have the flexibility to go out to networking events, to go out to meet extra people, gosh, do it. Because when the family and the life and all the other things come your way, if you decide that's your path, your time gets shrunken extensively. And it's those early relationships that ultimately build the bonds for what could come down the line.
Correct. You never know when you'll cash out on that. And again, at the end of the relationship is a debit credit relationship. Everything, like you cash out sometimes, you deposit sometimes. So you never know when you can enjoy the fruit of the labor, double quote, or someone also vice versa, right? You can help someone to pull someone with you, for that example, and you also enjoy because you're pulling him or her for a reason, right? Because you trust them. So it's not just you being pulled up, it's also you pulling people and get people to work side by side with you in order for you to succeed. So it's always, there's a with them, always. Human behavior, there's always a with them. Maybe not with kids, but even for kids, there's always a with them.
Yeah, what's in it for me, by the way?
What's in it for me, yeah. So it can be both sides of the coin. So don't just think about it as someone can pull me and get me speed tracked. You can also do it to others when you enjoy them speeding up the process, because then you enjoy the fruit of their labor and their production.
How much of a role does your relationship with your boss play in whether or not you stay or whether or not you go?
I think they always say, there's a saying, you don't leave a job, you leave your manager. I don't think it's 100% true, but I think it's about 90% true. I think your direct manager, or even above that, has a tremendous effect of how you perceive the work you're doing and how it affects you at work. A bad manager, which can't create a roadmap for you, that doesn't know to manage, that doesn't encourage you, doesn't say a good word, doesn't do anything, most likely you'll be happy for a year, maybe two, until you get what's going on, and it takes time to settle in. But at some point, it's like unnurturing parent, right? At some point, you look outwards because you don't develop anymore, and you're not happy because you can't talk to them, or you can't ask them for advice, or they don't have a good word, and everybody needs a good word, period. And even if it seems redundant, say a good word. People, we thrive with compliments, right? When we get complimented, even if it's trivial things like just good job, thank you for doing that. And if you don't have that, you just fade away a bit because everything seems to be granted. And even if you pay to do a job, you still want to hear, like, you don't get tips in our job, but the tip is a good word. That's our tip. And
what you're describing is words of affirmation. And I think that goes both up to your boss and to your peers and everything else. It's like the easiest thing you can possibly do doesn't cost you anything except for being conscientious and aware of it. And just because you don't need that, it doesn't nourish your soul or your enjoyment of work, doesn't necessarily mean that that's not the case for everybody else. And so,
and don't think you don't need it, because once you get it, you'll see how much. Like it's like sometimes with the food comes the appetite. You don't feel hungry until the food is in front of you, until you took the first bite. And then suddenly, oh my God, I'm so hungry. And you finish the sandwich in a half a minute because you didn't even understand how hungry you are. So I think managers have 90% of the reasoning for you to stay or go. I know people that move with the managers. Literally, I have an employee of mine that we're bringing to the States that they're just willing to move with me. And that's amazing when you have this relationship, when you go to another job as a manager or leader and people want to follow you. That's amazing. And vice versa, right? If you go to a place and people quit, that also tells a story. So I think, except for maybe two places in my career, I like, let's say out of 6 jobs I had overall, serious ones, 2 of them I left because of relationship with my manager, which was great in the beginning and deteriorated, or someone new came in with not the right attitude in my perception. Again, it's my perception. It's not meaning that he's not good for the company. And just I couldn't bear it anymore. And then it goes to physical symptoms, mental symptoms, and again. But the manager has a direct effect on that.
Yeah, let me ask the students a question. Post in the comment section, what can you do to be conscientiously aware of and regularly give out compliments? Like, what can you do to do that? I mean, obviously you can't, it's not a good look to be fishing for compliments. Let's put it like that. But what can you do to proactively give other people compliments? Even if you don't actually need compliments yourself, like what can you do to consciously keep that top of mind? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn. So, Arik, I'd be curious, are there things that a student can do in the interview process? I know you talked about before, like you would never marry your wife after 2 dates, but is there something we can do in the interview process to get a better understanding as to whether or not a company is a fit for us?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think what students, especially students, have to remember that it's not just the employer interviews you. It's your opportunity to interview the employer. It's a bi-directional relationship. We have to remember that in my domain, the VC domain, we all want, and I'll give an example. It's very easy I think for people to understand. When a startup wants money or needs money in a round, we go to VCs, venture capital, and we ask for check, right, at the end of the day. But part of the process of the due diligence and talking to them is also to understand that the VC is the right fit for us. We don't just need a check. We don't just need a job. We need a place to develop. We need a place we can thrive. We need a place we'll enjoy going in the morning. Again, the majority of our waking time is at work. We have to remember that. And it's not going to change in our career until we are 65 or AI throws out of the window, which, again, I don't think will happen anytime soon, but that's where people disagree. Some people disagree. You have to ask, don't be afraid to ask your employer questions. What is the work hour? What are the work hours? What am I going to do? How do you see me develop? What's the roadmap of the company, especially if it's a young company? If it's a startup, how much runway do you have, right? If you're just joining a startup and they have half a year runway and they're not sure they're going to raise, should you join? Yes. If you're a student, I would join any organization because you need to put your foot in the door because experience is key. But as more experienced employee, do you join someone for half a year or don't you? It could be yes. The answer could be yes. But don't forget that there is at least a month of overall onboarding, give or take, in any company. So things always start slow. So don't be afraid to ask questions that interest you, not just what's my compensation, how many shares do I get, and what's my health insurance. That's technical. That happens in every employer. You'll get compensation, you'll get healthcare, and you'll get A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or whatever. You need to understand that the place can develop you, especially as a student. You need to learn. You need a manager or a coworker that will be able to teach you and not just throw at you things and go cope with it and berate you if you made mistakes. Because you'll start. So I have a contractor with freshman university, and I don't expect him to do things in my speed or any experienced developer. I think that I could probably finish in 2 days. It would take him 2 weeks, and I'm fine with that. I'm not going to put on him critical things that I need for tomorrow and have the thought in my mind that, yeah, it should be done by tomorrow, because if it was me, it would have been done. But I know that it will take him 2 weeks, and I'm fine with it. And I'm fine with him doing mistakes, and I'm fine with him correcting him to a point, of course. But be very aware of also the person you're talking to. Who's your boss? How much experience do they have? Will they willing to be your mentor? If not, who can be your mentor? Ask these questions. Some of them, and again, fill the room, right? Don't just come with a list of questions. Ask them all. Fill the room. Fill the chemistry, and see how you feel confident after 2 dates that this is the right employer. And always assess. The first 90 days is for you to have meetings with people. Is for you to learn the material and what's going on, and for you to decide if this is a good fit. And the employer does the same, by the way. That's why in the startups, there's a year's cliff for options. Not because someone invented a year and he wants to have and decided on that, like I want a year and randomly decided on that, because it takes time to get to know each other, to understand that you're the right fit and them the right fit for you.
No, I like that. Let me ask students a question, one last one real quick. Post in the comments section. What are some questions that you would like to ask any prospective employer to better understand if that company is a fit for you? Put in the comments section. I'd love to learn, what are some questions you'd like to ask a prospective employer so then you can, better understand if that employer is a fit for you. So, Arik, this has been a great workshop. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground in just determining how to determine when is the right time to pursue the next job and the next role. I'd love to ask, just because I bet a lot of our students are curious, are you okay? How can our students learn more about you and your work? Are you okay with them connecting with you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. My LinkedIn is public. It's Arik Y in the profile. Feel free to connect with me. Tell me you saw my interview, and I'll be happy to guide you as much as I can. I don't monitor LinkedIn on a daily basis because, we have Slack and there's a lot of work in a startup, but I'll definitely come back to you. And again, use the tools, use the connections, and today's AI technology as well. Consult with AI. Don't rely on it, but definitely consult with it, because you're not going to invent the wheel. People already did that before. It's just a matter of taking the information and still it to your needs and your character and what you're looking for.
Amazing. Well, Arik, thanks for being here. Thanks for your insight. Students, thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your day.